broadcasting from Studio 202 at the Springett Technology Center in Navasota, Texas. It's NOV Live. Now, here's your host, Michael Gaines.
Hello and welcome to NOV Live. I'm Michael Gaines and glad you are joining us today as we continue our ongoing conversation bringing you technical insights and experts to answer your questions and help shed some light on technologies and innovations happening in the energy industry. So we are going to be talking about a really interesting topic today, which is Downhole Broadband Solutions. And our guest is going to be Andrew Coit, and we are going to dive down and have a great conversation about the innovations that this technology is bringing to the market. So before we get to Andrew, we are going to head over to Shelby and talk about how you can be a part of today's conversation and hopefully not have as many tongue twisters as I've already had so far, Shelby.
Yeah, I'll try to avoid the tongue twisters.
Don't make my mistake.
But yeah, I think this is going to be a really fantastic show. We have a great expert here. Andrew, you're definitely going to want to ask him your questions. And the best way you can do that is by commenting below. Whether you're watching this from Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, go ahead and comment your questions. As you can see, I got my screens here, so I'm checking out the comment sections throughout the entire show. And at the end, we're going to do a live Q&A. So any of the questions that you comment have a chance to be featured live on air on the show and get answered. So definitely put those below. I look forward to seeing what everybody has to ask Andrew or even Michael. I love to put him on the spot too. So, any chance I can do that. And so I'm looking forward to seeing everything in there. And so those are all the different ways that you can ask your questions. For today's show, if you'd also like to look at any past episodes, you can view those at nov.com/live. And if you have a question on one of those past episodes, we still are experts. They're not going anywhere, or we at least can get in touch with them if they are an external guest, so we can still get your questions answered. And the best way to get your questions answered for past episodes is by emailing us at socialmedia@nov.com. So we're going to have that email on the screen if you have any questions on past episodes. Again, like I said, today's episode, just comment it. We'll be able to see that today. And so we've talked about today's episodes, past episodes, all the different ways you can ask us questions. Now it's time for the time of the show where I ask you my question. It's time for Rig Geek Post of the Week.
Rig Geek's Post of the Week.
All right, and so for our Rig Geek question this week, I think I asked a technical one last week, and I'm coming at you again, Rig Geeks, with another technical question. And I think, we get these questions often from our experts themselves. And, I think I got a little bit of a tongue twister for me this week. So I'm going to try to read this question and have it sound great, so bear with me. Our question for the Rig Geeks, and we'll have it up on screen too, is traditional mud pulse and EM telemetry has a transmission rate of 3 to 48 bits per second. How many times faster, on average, is IntelliServe WDP telemetry? So that's wired drill pipe telemetry. If you think you know approximately how many times faster our WD telemetry is, go ahead and comment that below, and we're going to reveal the answer at the end of the show. And I heard you might, if you listen close, you might get that answer throughout the show. So if you hear it and want to comment it, you'll still get credit, but I'll also reveal it at the end.
All right. So the question is, how much wood could a woodchuck cut? If that's not it. Oh, okay.
Yeah, not yeah.
Yeah. There you go. All right. Great. Well, thanks, Shelby. All right, so we're going to dive into our conversation today with our guest. So Andrew Coit, he is the DDS Business Development Manager and is going to be talking with us today about Downhole Broadband Solutions. So Andrew, thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Michael. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, glad you're here. All right, so when depending on where you're coming from in the energy space, you hear broadband solutions, and you might think, okay, great, I need to get high-speed internet to my house, or I need to get something going. But now we're talking about downhole broadband solutions, and that is taking some concepts that are similar, but applying that in the oil field. So wanted to kind of talk about that, and maybe let's set the level playing field for those that might not be familiar.
Yeah, you bet. So as we all know, data is king, and we're all used to being overwhelmed by it on a daily basis. But one unique opportunity as we shepherd the oil and gas business through what we call the fourth industrial revolution, where data becomes the way that we make decisions, few and far between. We're removing opinions, making sure that data is seamlessly driving our business. We want to make sure we're not only getting that data at the right time, but at the right time from the right place. And so Downhole Broadband Solutions is a wired drill pipe technology that supplies high-speed, real-time downhole data from where you traditionally get wellbore positioning or logging information close to the drill bit in the bottom hole assemblies. But now we have the capability to do that at multiple placements all along the string, almost like a four-dimensional movie to help make better decisions, right? Awareness is king. And for those just that might have previous experience or exposure with wired pipe, it's not just what it is, but what has changed, maybe. A lot has changed since about the 2015 time period when we rolled out the version 2, which is the new version of this technology. Over the last 6 years, we've drilled over 210 wells, about evenly split between land and offshore. We've raised the reliability from about 70% up to over 92%. And we've got tons of use cases from our early adopters over the last few years, so that now when we talk about using data to make better decisions, now we have the data to show what decisions were made, which is fantastic.
Yeah. So when you are talking about the Downhole Broadband Solutions, and we've kind of talked a little bit about the high level, I know that obviously there are components and discrete elements on that. Can you talk a little bit about, what does this consist of? What does the system consist of?
Sure, yeah. If I could have the next graphic, actually, please. Thanks very much. So this really is as I said before, a four-dimensional system with placements all along the wellbore. If you can see the graphic, or those that are watching with us, we still do have placement in the bottom hole assembly where your traditional conventional sensors are placed. But then where the green dots are, those are just representing the capability to have sometimes even up to 11 simultaneous high-speed, real-time sensors communicating the right information at the right time to our customers. We do what's indicated in blue. We do have to boost that signal as we're coming up. How we transmit that signal from the bottom hole assembly through the wired pipe is through electromagnetic induction. There's no wires hanging out anywhere for those that haven't seen it before. It's completely almost invisible to the rig crews per se. And that data will stream up and either connect to surface in two ways. What's represented by that purple dot, what we call the data swivel or the DWT. The data swivel is when we're connecting the wired drill string on the top drive during drilling operations. So you're getting that high-speed downhole data while you're drilling, while you're connected, while you're flowing, right? But that's not the only time you might want visibility downhole. With conventional telemetry, that's the only place you can get telemetry from downhole at the slow rates, right? Now, with the DWT, which stands for data while tripping, we can actually make up while we are not drilling, make up while we're on the elevators, and get gapless data flowing across. So that's one of the big benefits here of getting high-speed data, but not just during the drilling process, but during the entire well construction. And that's coming to surface at about 1,000 times faster, or about 56,700 bits per second.
Wow.
Pretty game-changing.
Wow, yeah. No, and so, I mean, I know that when you're looking at this approach to, downhole broadband solutions and looking at wired drill pipe, DWT system, combining all of those provides an enhanced level of value for customers, which actually leads me to my next question.
Sure.
So when you're looking at the value case for incorporating this approach in an overall drilling system and ongoing campaigns, what is the value that we're seeing, and what does that look like from an end user standpoint?
One thing that I'd like to note is that there is no flow dependency, right? So there's ultimate flexibility in using this. So, if I could summarize the value, why customers are involving any of these technologies, and especially a system such as this that gives you the right data at the right time from the right place to make better decisions. That's what it's all about, right? It's first, speed; second, consistency; third, risk management; and fourth, procedural adherence, right? Reducing that gap of knowledge, gap of communication, gap of implementation between town and the rig site. And this graphic that we have an example of here today focuses on the third element I mentioned, risk management, but sometimes can be the most valuable. It's hard to be an insurance salesman or saleswoman, right? But in this case, we got very, very close to quantifying what happens when things can go wrong and we can prevent them, right? In this chart, we're showing what could have been a stuck pipe event. The top chart, just to qualify it, because there's a lot of data on here, just to focus on the top part, it's a green line showing block height. So as it moves down, we're drilling down each stand. In the chart below that, we're showing EFD, or equivalent fluid density. You might also be able to just call that mud weight, right? What is the weight of my fluid column, or the density of my fluid column? On the right side of this chart, we are showing that we are running 3 tools. Like I said, you can run multiple tools simultaneously, and we're referencing ASM. It stands for a long string measurement, one of our tools that transmits high-speed data. The equivalent fluid density that's measured at that tool, the mud weight that's measured at that tool, is plotted in real time to the left of that. And in real time, as if a customer were looking at this, it'd be sliding across the screen. On the right side, in between those words, you can set thresholds for delta mud weights between those placements to say, ooh, I think it's happening here. This is where my problem is. So in this example, on the left side, we've done what's called fingerprinting. We're looking at the mud weight at each sensor from bottom to top, drill bits on the bottom, up to top, and on that first stand that we're seeing in the green there at the top, we see a nice shading from red up to blue. Now, that's not normal for every well. Every well has its own fingerprint. That's what the fingerprint looks like for this well. We were drilling down, everything's looking wonderful. About halfway through the stand, you start to see the mud weight ramp up. And where is it ramping up? Well, it looks like, based on the yellow line on the right side of the graph, that it's somewhere between the second and the third tool. Well, where are those second and third tools? Well, we know where they are because we designed where they're placed. We found out that this dysfunction that we were seeing as it continued on the next stand was a cuttings avalanche at the end of an extended tangent section. And so we were able to, number one, on the second stand, tell the customer, hey, we think it's a good idea to stop drilling operations. So we stopped the job, and then we initiated a information-specific mitigation plan that was pinpointed around where we identified the problem. We mitigated it, pumped a few cleanup cycles, pumped a few pills, cleaned up the well, worked the pipe, as you can see. And when did we stop? Not because of a rule of thumb. We stopped when the data told us to stop. And we continued when the fingerprint returned to the resting fingerprint before the dysfunction presented itself. Right. So, how much money does saving a stuck pipe event cost? It's hard to quantify. If it's, a few days, it could be a few $100,000. If it's a few weeks or you lose something, it could be in the millions. And the important thing is we're working with our customers in lockstep, not just delivering this technology, but working with them as a service, operationally throughout the entire delivery process.
So for those that are joining us, we are talking to our expert guest here today, Andrew Coit, who is the DDS Business Development Manager, and we are talking about Downhole Broadband Solutions and wired drill pipe as well. So if you have any questions for Andrew as we're having our conversation here, feel free to put those in the comments section, and Shelby will try to get to those and get to as many as we can during our conversation. So again, talking about Downhole Broadband Solutions and wired drill pipe and the technologies that are enabling this innovative space in the energy industry. So feel free to put your questions or comments in, and we look forward to getting those in just a few moments. So Andrew, I want to actually shift and talk about something that I know I've had a little experience in. I know you have. So we're talking about maybe a little bit of comparison of what we're talking about here. So the broadband solutions, talking about wired drill pipe. I had some work with Rollicone drill bits and even some downhole survey management tools that use some variations of mud pulse. So I'm familiar with that, and I know a lot of people are familiar in that space. So if we're looking there and saying, okay, help me understand, how does this compare to traditional mud pulse or even EM telemetry? Help give me a gauge there, because I think which is fair. That's a frame of reference I think many share. Help us understand, kind of going from there.
Yeah, so how do we compare to the status quo, right? And why is it more valuable to just do something different? We never want to be doing something different just for the sake of doing so. There's got to be value in it, right? And it's got to be measurable. So one key element of this, and we'll share a video with our audience here shortly, if not already, is that there's no flow dependency on this wired drill pipe telemetry system. All the tools are battery powered. We have two-way communication that's instantaneous. Like we mentioned before, there's multi-placement capability. So you have not only 3-dimension visibility, but 4-dimension when you include time. And we have the ability to connect and gain data with no gaps throughout the entire well construction process. We're not just getting data while we're drilling and then missing it when we're tripping, or missing it when we're running liners or running completions operations. We're getting it the entire well construction process, which is huge. If a customer or an operator is wanting to drill wells, filling in gaps in those areas where you wouldn't normally get data are huge assumptions in many cases. So one tool that we are starting to release with our early adopters, and this is on the leading edge of helping us close that chasm to gapless information throughout the well construction process, is the DWT tool, which stands for data while tripping. Because we have that no flow dependency and the system is always on if you have the ability to connect, this tool, while you're tripping on elevators, as you can see in this example, will swing out from the bales and apply hydraulic pressure to the coil, the induction coil of the wire drill pipe, and all of a sudden the string will become live, so you get that real-time swab and surge data when you're tripping in or tripping out, or doing some sort of mitigation process in the well where you typically would not get that information with conventional transmission methods.
Wow, man, that's really, really interesting. So, of course, at the end of the day, and I'm going to use your words back to you.
Yeah.
You know, data is king. So when we're looking at data, looking at results, ultimately, that's what's going to help drive the benefits for end users and for customers. So, wanted to talk about some real world data. So, some results and the visibility that we've seen in terms of deliverables from using these downhole broadband solutions. Can you talk about that? Because I'm always like at the go, ready to talk data. I know that our audience always is as well.
Yeah. So I'm an engineer by background. I love getting nerdy about all the data and all the good stuff. But where are the results, right?
Right.
So we've got all the incentives conceptually to design stuff like this, but the proof's in the pudding, as they always say, right? As I mentioned, for those of our audience that may just be joining us, we did have a bit of a data outage early in the session. We've released the new version of wired pipe 6 years ago. So now we have 6 years of highly reliable case studies under our belts. We have 210 wells of data, evenly split between land and offshore, just to reiterate that earlier point for those that missed it. And it's all about those 4 key value categories: speed, consistency, risk management, and procedural adherence. The case study that I'd like to just reference for our audience here is a unique example from a recent project that had measurable value that delivered in each of those categories, right? So this is an offshore customer recent here where we saw marked ROP improvements. We saw, a huge outlier there is referenced on the chart, right? Massive improvement of almost more than double in one of the sections, but at least in the 20 to 30% range. And that's a pretty good baseline we're seeing across the board when we roll out this technology. If we're not seeing, using downhole data, we're quantifying torque and drag, quantifying where the energy is being lost along the hole. If we're not getting performance increases, at least in the lower areas of the 20 to 30%, we're not using the data effectively. Secondarily on this, on the next graphic, we saw an increase in section length. This is exposure to that cost component and consistency of results. We have a well design. Can we achieve that section? How many times can we repeat it, right? How reliable are we in delivering the plan that we've set forth at the beginning of the well? So as you can see here, we saw a consistent ability to not only deliver sections, but deliver them in an extended manner. And also, on the third graphic here, the same points, we reduced open hole time. And this is very key and related to that previous chart of increasing section length and reducing unplanned trips. The less pressure cycles you have on a wellbore when you're drilling, pre-completions process, right, pre-production process, the more stable the well will be. The less time you have open hole, part and parcel to that, same point. And also to wrap a bow on both of these, there's a new value element that we've started to see on top of those 4, because those 4 really just focus on the drilling execution process. Now we're starting to see, as Rice.Energy stated in their Q4 2019 study of the North Sea, they did a deep dive in wired pipe right before all the COVID lockdowns, right? And so everyone kind of went to sleep for 2020. We're waking back up here. That data is still valid. We're seeing a touch point that we can finally quantify in terms of production. So if you drill well, those wins always lived on the drilling budget. Now we're able to start to see glimmers of hope and quantification of improvements in the well life cycle, production, and also potential reductions in emissions. And so Rystad quoted in that 2019 report potential increases just in the North Sea, right? So, it doesn't apply to every region. 20% increases in production because of improved well placement with better data, improved section length as we saw, and improved open hole times, right? And if we drill wells more efficiently, more effectively, we get more production out of less wells, we're being better stewards of our oil and gas's place in the energy sector. And to round that out, they stated that just with involving wired pipe, not even including the touch points to automation, closed loop automation, all of those things, we can potentially, just with wired pipe, cut our carbon footprint or our emissions by about 5% per well. That's a pretty big metric.
Yeah, no, and that's really, like you said, a nice component to add to the overall efficiencies gained and benefits from using the overall broadband solutions and wired drill pipe like we've been talking about today. So that's really great insight and perspective. Really appreciate it, Andrew.
No, thanks a lot.
So I think at this point, I've been asking you a bunch of questions, and now I'm going to turn the tables to our audience through Shelby and allow them to ask their questions.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for submitting your questions so far. And I did want to add, if you do have a question, it's not too late. You can still comment that, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. But this first one comes from Avery on LinkedIn, and they're asking, is this technology used with any natural gas measurement?
So we do have surface measurements with natural gas where we can measure different types of sea content. We don't have in our standard commercial offering those types of sensors to measure that downhole. However, we can start to qualify what types of influxes we may be getting and where it's coming from in the well. That said, our goal is not to be the deep diver in each rabbit hole that you could go down with this network. Our goal is to be the provider of the playground with which anyone can plug into and plug any sensor kit into. So, no, we've not done that. Can we qualify? Yes, not quantify yet.
Excellent. And this next question, we wanted to ask, what other applications or visualizations are available through Downhole Broadband Solutions?
Great question. So we did show equivalent fluid density. We can see downhole weight, downhole torque, 3-axis vibration, not only the external pressure like we saw before in the annulus, but the internal pressure of the tools. We can also see bending, vector bending, and we can also see temperature. And we can see those all the way up and down the drill string. We're streaming through the pipe at about 80 times a second as well, especially from the BHA tool.
Great.
And we're able to visualize all that, yeah.
Well, not that it's too late to ask me more questions, because you can always email any other questions you have to socialmedia@nov.com. But we will wrap up the live Q&A for now. But like I said, Andrew's not going anywhere. We still got him here, so you can reach out to him there, and we'll get your question answered as soon as we can. But I did want to now go and answer the question I asked you all earlier today. So we're actually going to answer the Rig Geek Post of the Week. And since we had a little bit of a transmission break, first we're going to show that question one more time. If you think you might know it and you can get that answer in really quick there, go ahead and get your fingers ready, get your keyboard ready. So the question's on screen now. We asked, traditional mud pulse and EM telemetry has a transmission rate of 3 to 48 bits per second. How many times faster on average is IntelliServe wired drill pipe telemetry? All right, and I'm going to give a little bit of the answer, and then I'm gonna head over to Andrew. But yeah, if we get a drum roll, the answer is we'll have that on screen as well. It's approximately, or actually more than 1,000 times faster. So Andrew, could you elaborate a little bit more on what that number is? Sure,
Shelby. Yeah. So that 1,000x metric is coming from the faster electromagnetic comparison. So if you compare it to some of the slower elements of mud pulse, it's 10x faster than that even. So we're trying to say that it's at least 1,000 times faster than conventional methods. And we want that to not be a wow factor, that this is a fringe technology. We want this to be the new normal because it's our responsibility as we execute these wells to be responsible stewards of the risk of that operation. And as we start to see wire drill pipe become more normal, we want that number to be less and less of a shock as it becomes a full replacement for conventional drill pipe, right?
Wow, man. Yeah, no, I agree. I appreciate, especially when we talk about these technologies, that it could seem that that's a great futuristic idea, or it'd be great if we could get there one day. And it's a cliche, but that one day is today, right?
It is.
We can do that
Absolutely.
now. So that's really great. All right, well, great. Well, thanks, Shelby. Thank you, Andrew, for the conversation today. Been
Thanks a
really
lot.
insightful.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So, and before we head out, I know that if folks want to find more information on Downhole Broadband Solutions, they can go to the handy search bar at NOV.com and type in Downhole Broadband Solutions, and can take you straight there to read up and get in contact with folks like Andrew and many others on the team that are ready and willing to help. So,
I believe
great.
Shelby's going to be sharing some industry publications as well.
Yes.
On One Petro, so you'll have those references, and we also have some other reference publications and a couple other industry publications outside One Petro, like World Oil and what have you.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, Andrew. Appreciate it. And we want to thank you for joining us today on NOV Live, where we try to bring you experts and expert analysis on energy items across the world. So today's guest was Andrew Coit. Our production team is Kamal Carr, Paul Dufio, and Wei-Han Lin. Our social media specialist is Shelby Dumaine, and I'm Michael Gaines. If you'd like to join any of the other conversations, head over to nov.com/live, where you can join and watch any of our previous episodes. So on behalf of all of us here, thank you for watching and for listening, and we'll talk to you again next time.